Secretary Alfredo Pascual, His Excellency Jaime Leda, Philippine Ambassador to Belgium, representatives of the Philippine and Belgian governments and the diplomatic corps, esteemed speakers and panelists, distinguished guests, partners and friends from industry, good morning. Bonjour, guten Morgen, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. To all of you here in the room, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our virtual attendees joining us from across the globe. For your information, we are currently live on several Facebook pages, RTVM or Radio TV Malacanang, PTI Main, and ECCP. It's an honor and a privilege to welcome you to this Philippine Business Forum on Green Energy and Digital Technologies. I am Florian Gottein, your MC for today, and when I'm not in Brussels emceeing, I work in Manila as the Executive Director of the European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, or ECCP, which is actually the oldest European chamber outside of In ECCP, we are proud to have served as the voice of the European business community in the Philippines for 45 years now, advocating for Philippine global competitiveness, economic openness, as well as sustainability. In the Philippines, we have recently seen a wave of game-changing reforms. These include the amendments to the Public Services Act, Retail Trade Liberalization Act, and the Foreign Investment Act, as well as the liberalization of several investment areas such as solar, wind, hydro, and tidal energy. As a matter of fact, there has been a great momentum and interest in the Philippines now more than ever, especially when it comes to investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, water resource management, among others. I do not wish to preempt any of the discussions, and all these will be discussed at length in the presentations and panel discussions today. But let me quickly cite examples of what we hope to see more in the next weeks, months, and years. Last March, Danish investors signed contracts worth more than $7 billion for offshore wind projects in the Philippines, making it the country's first 100% foreign-owned offshore wind development, and we hear of investors from Spain coming in with another huge investment in renewable energy as well. We are optimistic that these are just two out of many investments that will follow soon. With all these positive developments, I say this with strong conviction, the time for increased investments in sustainable solutions in the Philippines is now. During the trip of President Marcos here to Brussels last December, we saw strong commitments from both the European Union and the Philippines to work together to tackle climate change, particularly through the transfer of green technology, improving resilience, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. As such, we wish to echo and reiterate President Marcos' recent but urgent call for cooperation in fighting effects of climate change and ensuring sustainable development. That's why I'm thrilled to witness this event today here. Seeing the experts here in the room, I look forward to hearing the solutions on the table. May we leave this room inspired to take urgent action. We can jointly work together towards achieving a greener, more inclusive, prosperous, and sustainable future for us all. Thank you very much, and maraming salamat po. Now, without further ado, allow me to introduce our first speaker this morning, who is no other than the Ambassador-designate of the Republic of the Philippines, Embassy to the Kingdom of Belgium, and the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, and Mission to the European Union. Ambassador Jaime Victor B. Leda is a career diplomat and a lawyer. He is an alumnus of the University of the Philippines with degrees in political science and law obtained in 1984 and 1988, respectively. He joined the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs in April 1990 and has served in various capacities in Home Office and in foreign service posts in Milan, Brussels, Beijing, and Macau SAR, where he was the first resident consul general of the Philippines. His most notable positions include Assistant Secretary for Consular Affairs from April 2010 to November 2013. In recognition of his distinguished service in consular affairs, he was awarded the Gawad Mabini rank of Dakilang Kamanong on July 26, 2012. Philippine Ambassador to the Kingdom of the Netherlands and Permanent Representative to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and other international organizations in The Hague from November 2013 to August 2020. He received the Knight Grand Cross Order of Oranje Nassau in January 2020. Assistant Secretary for European Affairs from December 2020 to January 27, 2020. During that period, he was designated as Philippine representative to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights and Philippine ASEM SOM leader in a concurrent capacity. Ambassador Leda is married to Gina Bakandangai Leda, a PhD candidate at ISS Erasmus in The Hague, and they have one son. Mr. Ambassador, the stage is yours.
The Honorable Secretary Fred Pascual, Undersecretary Kim Lukin, Assistant Secretary Mylene Kapungol of the Department of Energy, Executive Director Evariste Cagatan of the Board of Investments, Dr. Dan Lachica, President of the Semiconductor and Electronics Industries of the Philippines, Mr. Jack Madrid, President of the IT and Business Process Outsourcing Association of the Philippines, Mrs. Anne Strootband, the Deputy Chief of Staff, the Office of Minister Tin van der Straten, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, bonjour, goedemorgen, magandang umaga, magandang araw, if I may say that, and good morning as well. I'm pleased to welcome you all to the Philippine Business Forum on Green and Digital Technologies. Today's forum will showcase the Philippines' potential as an investment destination and its commitment to energy transition and digital transformation. The Philippines is projected to be a $1 trillion economy by 2030, with GDP growth estimated at 6.3% this year. With ambitions to attain middle-income status, the country's energy sector must rise to the challenge of supporting its next phase of growth amidst the rapid expansion of industries to sustain its development requirements and the need to meet climate targets. While energy transition is a challenge, it also brings new opportunities. As President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. stated, the Philippines is Asia's fastest economic rising star. With the Philippine President's strong leadership and with overwhelming political support, groundbreaking economic policies are being pursued, including recent legislation that promises advantages for investors, including those from Belgium. These efforts are further bolstered by the Philippines' robust economic fundamentals and its steady post-pandemic recovery. President Marcos has set forth his plans and policies into motion, supported by an exceptional economic management team, and each member of his team possesses unparalleled expertise in the respective fields, ensuring policy continuity and world-class competence. This includes the Minister, Secretary of Trade and Industry, Alfredo Pascual. He is a highly respected business and management practitioner who has served in both the public and private sectors. Prior to his appointment to the Department of Trade and Industry in June 2022, Secretary Pascual served as the President and the CEO of the Institute of Corporate Directors in 2018 and 2019. He held key positions at the University of the Philippines System from 2011 to 2017, including President and Co-Chair, and served as Alumni Regent in 2009 and 2010. And with a tenure of 19 years, spanning 1989 to 2008 at the Asian Development Bank, Secretary Pascual held various roles, including Director for Private Sector Operations, Director for Project Finance, and Advisor for Public-Private Partnership. Additionally, he worked as a finance professor at the Asian Institute of Management during the 1980s. Secretary Pascual has also served as an independent director on the boards of publicly listed companies such as SM Investments, Megawide Construction, and Concepcion Industrial. Secretary Pascual completed his MBA and BS in Chemistry, cum laude, at the University of the Philippines. He also attended the EU-ASEAN Program on Strategic and Organizational Change at the Euro-Asia Center campus in INSEAD, France. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker. Let us all welcome warmly Secretary Alfredo Pascual as he delivers his keynote address.
Thank you, Ambassador. Let me greet our distinguished fellow speakers and distinguished guests from the business community. Ladies and gentlemen, morning to all. I would like to express my gratitude to the European Union for providing a platform to invite prospective investors to the Philippines. My appreciation also to the welcome to our Philippine delegation in this beautiful city of Brussels. I stand before you today to address the urgent matter of transitioning to clean, green energy in the Philippines. The shift to green energy presents not only an environmental imperative, but also a remarkable economic opportunity. We recognize the EU's successful implementation of renewable energy policies will be instructive in accelerating our own energy transition in the Philippines. The EU is a valuable trade partner, making significant investments in the Philippines, amounting to approximately 2 billion euros over the years. In 2021, the EU ranked sixth largest trading partner with a total trade value of 15.2 billion euros. Consider the robust economy of the Philippines with a 7.6 GDP growth in 2022, outpacing regional peers. This year, the GDP is expected to grow at 6 to 6.3%. This forecast has been vetted by IMF, the International Monetary Fund, by the World Bank, and by the Asian Development Bank. Our growth trajectory will bring us to upper middle income country status in the next few years. We offer investors in the Philippines the benefits of tax breaks and simplified regulations. Under the recent reform measures, some of which was mentioned earlier, particularly under the CREATE Act, or the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act, and Executive Order on Green Lane Investments, we're able to provide support to investors coming to our country. The Philippines allows 100% foreign ownership in renewable energy projects. The country has introduced the National Renewable Energy Program 2020-2040, aiming for a 35% renewable energy share of our generation mix by 2030, increasing to 50% share by 2040. The Philippines offers vast opportunities in sustainable manufacturing, services, and connectivity. Key sectors such as electric vehicles, battery manufacturing, mineral processing, electronics, and semiconductors align with new industrial technologies and renewable energy. With a strong presence in the IT BPM space, the Philippines serves global markets with vertical focus solutions. The country's supportive environment enables multinational companies from Europe and elsewhere in the world to operate effectively and efficiently. The Philippines possesses critical minerals necessary for battery production and storage systems to reduce greenhouse gas emission and promote a circular economy. The Philippines is the fifth most mineralized country in the world, the second top global source of nickel, third largest reserves of gold, fourth for copper, sixth for chromite, as well as important chemicals in technology industries such as selenium and scandium. Combined with the government's sustainability commitment, the Philippines provides European investors with leverage. We have the Electric Vehicle Industry Development Act, or EVIDA law. With this, the Philippines is poised to become a regional manufacturing hub for electric vehicles and electric vehicle parts. The law provides fiscal and non-fiscal support, establishes production targets, and develops a comprehensive roadmap for the electric vehicle industry in the Philippines. The country's robust electronic industry contributes significantly to exports. I think the electronic and semiconductor industries contribute 40% of our exports. And these industries will support the electric vehicle ecosystem. Our country also has a vast potential in green energy sector, thanks to the abundant renewable resources like solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal power. Philippines has an estimated close to 250 gigawatts of untapped renewable energy capacity. It has the world's third largest geothermal capacity. The Philippines is also well positioned for solar energy, not in terms of geography, but with average solar radiation of around 165 watts per square meter. As an archipelagic country, we have identified 8 areas to harness tidal energy with the potential of up to 170 gigawatt of capacity. Aligning our standards with European requirements can improve access for Philippine green energy products and services, facilitating partnerships and expanding export potential in global clean energy value chains. Together, let us foster innovation and research in renewable energy. Taking inspiration from EU's direction, the Philippines is advancing in science, technology, and innovation policies. Meanwhile, we recognize the EU implementation of a policy that prioritizes production, that respects planetary boundaries, and prioritizes worker well-being. We also follow this principle for us to maintain our coverage by the GSP Plus of the EU, which is now in the process of renewal. Eventually, as we follow our growth trajectory, we will become an upper middle income country, and as such, will no longer be eligible for the GSP Plus coverage. And hopefully, soon we will start negotiation or restart our renegotiation for an FTA between the Philippines and the European Union. I've had very optimistic discussions with officials of the EU yesterday, and I'll continue to pursue these discussions this afternoon. I would like to stress that research and innovation are central to the Philippines' commitment to green and digital transitions, and also in other sectors. Many international companies have set up production plants in the Philippines to avail of low-cost manufacturing. But soon, they become aware of the talent of the Filipinos for design and creative work, and soon a number of them have set up their R&D centers also in the Philippines to support their production or development of new products. A good example is Maxion, an American solar cell manufacturer that started in the Philippines with its version 5 of solar cells. Now, the Filipino engineers and scientists in the company have every now and then develop higher version, higher efficiency solar cells. They are now about to embark on the production of their Maxion 8 version of solar cells with a much higher energy, solar energy conversion to electricity. And this production or this product is supported by 100 patents filed in the Philippines, and the production will now be done in the Philippines for the higher version of their solar cells. We recognize Europe's significant investments in renewable energy and development, as well as education. The Philippines would like to follow EU's lead with our over 1.5 million university graduates each year. By partnering with European institutions, we can enhance our capabilities in renewable energy research, development, and training, as well as in other fields. This collaboration will empower our workforce and academic institutions to contribute to green energy sector, fostering innovation and mutual growth. With the Philippines partnering with the EU, we can expedite renewable energy growth, enhance energy security, and contribute to global climate change migration. The time to make investments happen in the Philippines is now, as already been pointed out. Together, let us embrace this collaboration, foster cross-national connections, and forge sustainable and prosperous future for us all. Thank you and good day again.
Dear Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for this informative and encouraging keynote and for setting the tone for this event today. I'm sure many of the investors here in the room and online are keen to learn further about the business opportunities you have described in your presentation. Now, next on our agenda for today's event is the keynote of Minister Tine van der Straten, Belgian Minister of Energy, and it will be held on behalf of the Minister by Anne Stroband, Deputy Chief of Staff. Anne Stroband has been working since 2020 as Deputy Head of Cabinet for the Federal Minister of Energy in Belgium, Tine van der Straten. She is responsible within the Cabinet for renewable energy, including the Federal Hydrogen Strategy, the development of offshore wind, and other renewable topics. Before working for the Minister, she was the Managing Director for Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy, Belgium and Luxembourg, and before that she worked with Siemens on industrial gas and steam turbines. She has a master's degree in electromechanical engineering from the University of Ghent. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Anne Stroband.
Thank you, dear esteemed guests, dear ladies and gentlemen. The energy transition has been at the heart of global climate ambitions for years now. And we know that combating climate change is crucial to protect future generations. The horrific and shocking Russian invasion of Ukraine makes it clear that the energy transition for us is much more than only about climate change. Accelerating a clean energy transition is also about national and international security. This acceleration of the energy transition must be swift, decisive, but above all, together. Taking our energy back in our own hands is crucial, and maximizing our renewable energy production is for us key to become more independent of other countries and to allow our industry and citizens to electrify and use more energy more efficiently. This will, however, not be enough for a very energy-intensive country like Belgium, with a very small space and limited renewable energy potential. But our strength is a large energy infrastructure, connecting us with our neighboring countries for both electricity, natural gas, and in the future also for hydrogen. Renewable electricity can come from the future large sustainable power plant within the North Sea, with a huge potential, but for a part of our import of energy, but also hydrogen will play for us a role. And there we broaden our look from European interconnections to corporations on a global scale, and countries with a much larger potential of renewable wind and solar to share this energy in the form of hydrogen or its carriers with us, of course, in close cooperation to also allow for their own sustainable targets. We cannot do this alone in Belgium, meeting our climate change. We will always depend on other countries and the cooperation with other countries. So let us look at win-win situations in these cooperations and partnerships to meet our common climate goals. Belgium, Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands last year signed a treaty in Esbjerg in Denmark to work together on offshore wind and to replace fossil fuels with European renewable energy. Esbjerg was not the final stage, it was only the beginning of an alliance with all countries around the North Sea. And this cooperation was further strengthened and expanded in the Ostend Declaration in April this year, held in Ostend, of course, with 9 countries, the Esbjerg countries, together with France, UK, Ireland, Norway, and Luxembourg, were united around the same objective, to realize the full potential of the North Sea as the largest sustainable power plant of Europe, with a potential of 300 gigawatts of installed capacity. And the ambition of the summit is high: to continue the acceleration, the fight against fossil fuel dependency, and integrate national policies into common European approaches. Belgium has by far the smallest coastline of the other Esbjerg countries, yet our contribution to offshore wind ambitions are high. Belgium is a leader and a pioneer in offshore wind energy. Today we are even still number 2 per capita then, so to calculate worldwide, and building further on a North Sea power grid to tap into the full potential of the offshore wind in the North Sea. Thanks to the contribution also of the European Recovery Plan, Belgium can also present a world's first. By 2026, we will have built the very first energy island in the North Sea to connect our wind farms from the Princess Elizabeth Zone, as well as interconnections before sending the power to the mainland. A hybrid energy island where a Belgian consortium, Edison, with Jan de Nul and DEME, won the tender for from the grid operator Elia to build the foundations for this Princess Elizabeth Island. The offshore know-how and innovative spirit we have in Belgium, we export globally, also for the construction and the operation of offshore wind farms, and it gives our companies another opportunity to do pioneering work and further expand renewable energy production in other countries. 2 Belgian companies from the dredging world now make installation vessels for offshore wind farms worldwide. In Hoboken, a former shipyard was transformed into a yard where 40% of the worldwide platforms for offshore substations are being built currently. So yes, a small country can dream big. With humble people, perhaps sometimes a bit too humble, considering the great projects that our Belgian companies do realize. Every crisis has an accelerator for new solutions. Across Europe, governments have revised their energy policies. They have taken energy back into their own hands, and it is a matter of national security. The energy crisis has accelerated the energy transition, perhaps taking 10 years off the timeline. So yes, we can do it. We live in a unique area. In this decade, humanity is deciding whether the future will be livable. The solutions that are known and offshore wind will be the cornerstone of our ambitious policy. And working together makes us stronger to deliver on these ambitions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Trabant. Thank you very much for sharing the keynote on behalf of Minister van der Straten with us this morning and for highlighting ambitious renewable energy plans and projects here in Belgium, but also in the wider region. At this point, we have prepared a panel discussion for you on the topic of the Philippines, green transition and the EU. And I would like to give the floor to my colleague Liana Ottman, the Director for Advocacy at the EU-ASEAN Business Council, who will be moderating this session. Liana.
Thank you very much, Florian, and thank you everybody for joining us today. If I speak very quickly, it's because we are 10 minutes behind schedule and I don't want to hold you back for lunch. I would like to now invite on stage our esteemed panelists, Ms. Everest M. Kagatan, Executive Director of the Philippines Board of Investment. A round of applause, please. Aries has been with BOI for more than 3 decades, and in her new role as Executive Director, she oversees the Department of Investments, Promotion Services, catering to both domestic and international investors. Next, I would like to invite on stage Ms. Mylene Kapongkol, Assistant Secretary of the Philippines Department of Energy. Mylene has more than 30 years of experience in areas such as policy development and project management around developing strategies and reforms in the power and renewable sectors. Next will be Dr. Dan Lachica, President of the Semiconductor and Electronics Industries in the Philippines Foundation Incorporated. As head of SAPI, which represents the country's massive electronics industry, Dan has accumulated more than 40 years of experience in semiconductors, electronics, and consumer goods manufacturing. And last but not least, we have Jack Madrid, President and CEO of IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines. As head of IBPAP, Jack is at the forefront of ensuring that the Philippines remains competitive as a prime investment destination for RTVM services. Now, Jack is a seasoned business leader with 20 years of experience in strategy, digital innovation, and transformation initiatives. Thank you, panelists, for joining us today. Take a seat. Okay, hopefully this works. You can hear me, yes. We will be taking questions later today, after the panel. So if you have any burning questions, we'll hold it off for the open forum in a bit. So maybe, Aries, I'd like to start with you. We've heard earlier from Florian, the massive investments from Denmark and Spain in renewables, and also from Minister Pascual about the Philippines' vast natural resources as one of its biggest assets. Maybe you can explain in detail. I'm sure the audience will also like to know, why is the Philippines the best place for investments, particularly in the areas of green transition?
Let me just highlight 4 points. So if you want to invest, you're looking for where the growth is, where the resources are, and where government support is very strong. So in the Philippines, we are rapidly growing. We are seen to be one of the $1 trillion economies by 2033, and just this first quarter of 2023, we are the fastest growing economy in Asia at 6.4% GDP growth. And next to that, we sit on the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire. And that means we have rich deposits of copper, nickel, cobalt, and other minerals, which are critical in the adoption of cleaner energy applications, such as in e-vehicles, renewable energy, and battery technologies. We have an estimated reserve of 475 million metric tons of nickel, over 3 million metric tons of copper, 260,000 metric tons of cobalt, and these reserves highlight the Philippines' potential as a source of these critical minerals. In addition, with our archipelagic makeup and location in the Pacific Ring of Fire, the Philippines is blessed with indigenous and renewable sources of energy. In fact, various resource assessment conducted estimates that the Philippines has almost 492 gigawatts of renewable energy potential. And the World Bank has even identified a total potential capacity of 178 gigawatts for offshore wind. So we intend to tap this vast potential as we target to increase the share of our renewables in our power generation mix. And the combination of our vast resources, the Philippine government's strong commitment to sustainability, and making the business environment in the Philippines conducive for foreign investors, and best of all, our rich human capital, makes the Philippines a compelling destination for investors that are looking to profitably and sustainably pursue a green transition in serving their customers regionally and globally.
I guess you would be hard pressed to find reasons not to invest in the Philippines because there's so many benefits and opportunities for foreign investors to bring their money and their capital to the Philippines. So, Mylene, maybe I'll go to you next. This is something that I've heard at the EU-ABC, right? Foreign investors are telling us that they cannot invest in areas or in countries where there is a lack of supply of green energy. So it was very heartening to hear earlier by Minister Pascual commitments of the Philippines to increase renewable energy share by 50% in 2040. Very, very ambitious, and we hope that you will be able to reach that ambition. What are some of the specific incentives or policies that are in place to drive a green transition in the Philippines in order to encourage and facilitate foreign investments into the Philippines?
Yeah, thank you, Liana, and good morning, everyone. On the first question as to there's lack of green energy, so it's a matter of navigating the demand and supply for renewable energy. If there's demand for renewable energy, the Renewable Energy Act has provided various policy mechanisms in order to increase the demand. And on the supply level, what the government is doing is to facilitate investment in the renewable energy. And recently, we have issued 100% foreign ownership policy for renewable energy, and that the President of the Philippines has issued Executive Order 21 to facilitate the permits and licensing of this new renewable energy. So among the fiscal incentives are duty-free importation, of course. We have the income tax and the corporate income tax, no? And then the income tax holiday. On the non-fiscal incentives, which refers to the market development policies for the developers or the generators or the investors to invest in renewable energy, we have put in place both mandatory and voluntary policies. For example, for the mandatory, we have what we call the renewable energy portfolio standards, both for on-grid and off-grid areas. And as you know, the Philippines is an archipelagic country. We're composed of 7,000 plus islands, and that's depending on low tide or high tide, no, of course. And the demand in major islands are enough, and there's interconnection policies nowadays. But the distribution utilities, which are the mandated stakeholders in the power industry to procure certain percentage of renewable energy. And we increase from 1% to 2.52%. So that would result to around 35% of Renewable Energy Act for 2030. And renewable energy generation by 2030, and around 50. So for 2030, we're targeting around 13.2 gigawatt to meet the 35% RE share, and around 52 gigawatt of various renewable energy capacities in the island, of course. So for the voluntary, like consumers or manufacturing firms, we have what we call the net metering, the enhanced net metering program, wherein the customer itself is producing at the same time consuming its electricity. They have the opportunity to sell to the franchise distribution utility the generation that they produce. For the larger industrial customers or commercial, we have what we call the Green Energy Option Program, which allows customers with 100 kilowatt demand and above to choose their respective RE suppliers, no, renewable energy suppliers. And of course, one big thing that we have implemented is the Green Energy Auction Program. It's a centralized procurement by the government to serve all those that are connected to the grid through our wholesale electricity spot market.
Thank you, Mylene. Very, very comprehensive. Aries, what is the BUI's role then? What are some of the measures in place by the BUI to attract foreign investment into the Philippines?
So we do these kinds of roadshow, really promoting the country as a destination for investments in renewable energy and other industries. And we provide, together with the Department of Energy, we also provide support to those investors in terms of fiscal incentives. So fiscal incentives are available. It can be drawn from two laws. One is the corporate recovery for enterprise and tax incentives for Enterprises Act or the CREATE Act. And there is also a package under the Renewable Energy Act. But these fiscal incentives would comprise of income tax holiday. For renewable energy, it can be categorized as a Tier 2 project, which means 5 to 7 years of income tax holiday followed by a choice between 5% special corporate income tax for 5 years or 5 years also of enhanced deductions. Under the Renewable Act, it's straightforward 7 years of income tax holiday followed by 10% of corporate income tax, plus also incentives for capital equipment.
I'm very curious about this. I mean, you mentioned that you're going on road shows. What are some of the, I guess, asks from potential foreign investors, what they would like to see in terms of government support? Have you heard anything interesting?
Yes, other than, because of course incentives would just be icing on the cake. They are more interested, of course, on the institutional plans and also the policy support, which have been earlier discussed by ASEC Mylene. So I think we are heading on the right path in terms of inviting renewable energy investments into the Philippines. As I've said, the major attraction would be really the vast resources that we have, plus the government support in terms of fiscal and, more importantly, the policy support to take in more investments into the Philippines, especially now that we are able to allow up to 100% foreign equity ownership for several industries, including in wind, solar, and tidal energy power projects. And when we also have liberalized our Public Services Act, which provides that power generation can also be 100% foreign owned.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now turn to industry. Maybe I can start first with Dr. Lachika. How do you perceive the current state of sustainability practices within the semiconductors industry in the Philippines? And in what ways can the industry contribute to the green transition of the country?
Okay, well, thank you for inviting us here. Maybe just a quick background about the Philippine electronics industry. We are the top commodity exporter in the Philippines, something like $50 billion US dollars or 46 billion euros, 3 million direct and indirect workers, and we offer the whole gamut from semiconductors to 8 different sectors, including renewable energy and EV. So a very widespread business, and the interesting thing about our industry is that there's a lot of multinational companies from EU, from the US, and of course, you know the imperatives, the desire to be green. So there's a lot of effort to do that. In fact, one of the things that happened in the Philippines is used to be coal being the cheapest source of power was very popular, and now we're seeing a transition to renewable energy because of the demand of the customers. So from the main supplier upstream of the supply chain, renewable energy is being required. So we have a lot of green practices in the Philippines. One thing that I would stress, because we are also one of, and ASEC Mylene can confirm this, we are one of the biggest consumers of power. And so I can tell you right now, we need renewable energy because most of our companies are looking for renewable energy sources. It's because it's the demand of the customers. So not enough. So if you are really interested in setting up a renewable operation in the Philippines, We're open for business. Let's make it happen in the Philippines. We will work with you. We are, well, the interesting about our industry also is we're both on the demand and the supply side. We use power, but then again, we can supply you with the electronics that goes into this, assemblies that run the supply chain for power. One thing I would say though is we need storage technology. The Philippines has a lot of sun, we have solar, a lot of wind, but we can't do a 24/7 supply because we're lacking in storage supply. So that's one opportunity also in addition to bringing in RE projects. And we'll work with you from our industry perspective. Thank you.
Right, so you heard it first. If you have any interesting proposals, business proposals or projects, please approach any of our esteemed panelists today. I would like to now turn to digital transformation, which is extremely crucial to developing economies. It offers, among other things, global competitiveness and efficiency. So Jack, what are some of the key areas where the information technology and business process management sectors can make a significant impact on sustainability?
Thank you very much for the question, and grateful for the opportunity to be here on this important mission. Just to set some context about the IT and business process management industry, just like electronics, we are a major economic pillar of the economy. We employ 1.7 million direct jobs for Filipinos. And contribute $33 billion US dollars into the economy. That's about 9% of our country's GDP. And that's just direct jobs. Being a mature but still growing industry, we believe we have a major role to play in not just digital transformation, but in the process of sustainability transformation. We are a young country. The average age is 26, which is mirrored by the average age of our industry employee workforce. And so to our young workforce, sustainability, reducing carbon footprint, as well as diversity, inclusion, and care for the environment are very important attributes for our employers. Our industry has really diversified in the past decades. It seems like business process management captures almost every business function that has been offshored to the Philippines. Most of our business, comes from North America, but we see an increasing number of investors and locators from Europe and the Asia Pacific. It covers not just, we basically deliver customer experiences across business functions. And we've been doing that for several decades across banking. All the world's banks moved their business to the Philippines, financial services, insurance. The telecom industry, it seems, have already moved much of their operations there. But we are seeing more and more different verticals moving. Now, one of the silver linings of the pandemic, that we witnessed was really the migration of our, workforce to their home cities and provinces. And this was quite significant because that signified a reduction in the carbon footprint away from Metro Manila and Cebu. And this is really a big change because over the next 5 years, our industry roadmap projects that up to 40% of our workforce will now be outside Manila. Before the pandemic, it was only 25%. And so if we have an ambitious goal of adding 1 million more jobs in the next 5 years. And if we achieve that, that is 1 million employees outside Manila. And that is a much better balance. Our provinces and Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities don't have the congestion of Manila. And employees like that, especially now that we have work flexibility, that was very well supported by our trade secretary, Secretary Pascual. We used to be constrained in how much of our work could be performed in a hybrid environment. But with the new administration, very supportive of our industry, we now have full work flexibility for most investors. And this has really helped another important part of sustainability, which is impact sourcing. With the flexibility to work in a hybrid environment, our industry can now employ, senior citizens, even handicapped employees can now work with a full flexibility. And in terms of diversity, our industry has always been diverse. 60% of our workforce is actually women. But we've been doing that even before it became cool to talk about diversity. And so I think we have a big role to play. And I think the next 5 years we'll see more and more progress towards green IT and more sustainable business practices.
Thank you. I have one question, which I'm very, very curious about. How is the industry keeping up and looking to transform, especially with the increasing digitization of services, and now we've got AI? What are your biggest challenges, and how can Europe help?
That's a very good question. Our industry was one of the early movers of the digitization of our country. We would not be able to do what we do without the setting up of our contact center operations and data centers along that. I believe that as one of the leaders of our tech-driven environment, and now AI and generative AI is just at the cusp of taking off. I believe it's more of an opportunity than it is a challenge. And I think it will make the Filipino customer experience agent much more efficient and perform higher value-added tasks. But the need and challenge of digital upskilling and reskilling is at the forefront of our industry in order for us to continue to grow towards the 1 million jobs.
Right. And how are you looking at Europe to boost this transformation?
Well, we see increasing interest from European locators when they see the success of North American investors in our country. I think there is more interest in looking at the Philippines for transferring some of their global service operations. I think our neutral accent has always been a big advantage, but over and beyond that, the bedrock of our industry has really been our communication skills, has been our ability to deliver superior customer experience, and most of all, our empathy. And this is where I can proudly say that the Philippines is a world capital in delivering customer experience. That I can say confidently, and that is because of the Filipino talent.
Thank you very much, Jack. Maybe, Dr. Lachica, you can also explain or give some examples of the collaboration between CEP and Europe, and what are your plans with these partners, with your partners, and why is Europe so important to the Philippines electronics industry?
Okay. The profile again of the industry, 70% of our exports are in semiconductors, and the other 30%, ironically, is in what we call box builds or electronics manufacturing services. A box being a cell phone, projector and everything. So we do have a lot of big EU companies that operate in the Philippines. For example, Continental Electronics, ST Microelectronics. It's interesting, I was talking to Anne earlier, and obviously we haven't done much business with Belgium, and if I may share my experience with France, the biggest export destination of our country, at least as far as the EU is concerned, is Germany, and that's about 7% of our exports. Netherlands follows at about 3%, but you talk about Belgium and the other EU countries, not much there. And the reason why really is this is born out of our experience with France. SAPI collaborated, well, got to meet this French, the biggest French electronics company. They have both companies as well as university members, just like we do. And basically, the issue is they don't know about the Philippines, right? They don't know about our capabilities. So it's really so beneficial to have these trade missions, thanks to DTI, to introduce the Philippines to the EU community. Because at this point, for instance, the United States takes up about 12% of our exports, and there's no reason. I mean, electronics is really a global commodity. I mean, everything you touch, everything you see has electronic components in them, right? So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, in doing business with EU countries, no matter how small or how big. Earlier, I mentioned that coal was a very popular source of power for the Philippines. But today, there's even one company that is all renewable. It's gone away from coal, does wind, geothermal, solar, and everything. So those are big opportunities for Philippine manufacturers. The Secretary mentioned earlier that Maxion, one of the more efficient solar panel manufacturers, has a 23%, as of 2022, 23% solar efficiency, and they're angling at a 30% for solar efficiency for 2023 and beyond. They make not only solar panels in the Philippines, but we also produce solar wafers for them. So in other words, we get the ingots, we slice the wafers, and they manufacture them into solar cells in a clean room and then convert them to panels. So you can come to the Philippines if you want to avail of that supply chain that we have, not just for solar. We don't have the capability yet for wind turbines, but hopefully sooner or later, if Siemens or some other companies would like to explore the capabilities of the Philippines. Filipino engineers are very sharp. That much I can say. I mean, you take, for example, I hope it's okay to mention, ST Microelectronics. Maggie was here. A lot of the executives, a lot of the engineers are Filipinos. I mean, patents, Secretary Fred mentioned Maxion. Another one would be an American company. They do integrated circuit design in the Philippines, and they have some 32 US patents from products not just for automotive, but even for the space program of the United States. Imagine that. So the talent, and by the way, the other thing is if you don't have an entry point in the ASEAN region, the Philippines is a good takeoff point. Okay, so we're obviously members of the ASEAN in terms of access to the 600 million population and GDP. So there's just a lot of opportunities. I think the biggest opportunity really is to get to know the Philippines by attending these trade missions. Come visit, right? Come visit and eventually make it happen in the Philippines. Thank you.
I couldn't say it any better. Thank you so much, Dr. Lachika. No, this is something that we're pressing at the EU-ASEAN Business Council as well. We always hear, people don't know what Southeast Asia has to offer. They don't know what the Philippines have to offer, but we are a bright spot for investment. So please come to our part of the world and experience for yourself what we have to offer. Maybe I'll go now to Isaac Mylene as well as Iris. What opportunities exist for international partnerships, particularly with Europe, in advancing the green and renewable energy sectors in the Philippines?
Yeah, thank you again. As mentioned earlier, we have already opened up renewable energy generation up to 100% foreign ownership. We have clarified the processes and guidelines in the issuances of permits and licenses. And of course, we have what we call the Energy Virtual One-Stop Shop that provides the end user or the investors to really determine the dates in which they can get their permits and license. And of course, there are emerging opportunities like the offshore wind and the floating solar. And we continue to innovate and design various market mechanism and other partnership with the European Union has been providing us with capacity building as well in terms of offshore wind development. There are still a lot of works that we're doing, like improving the local supply chain for offshore wind, and this includes, of course, competency for new technologies. So again, we mentioned that there are, the Philippines are sharp and very qualified in doing new jobs and taking on new opportunities. So again, it's an opportune time to partner with the foreign investors. Thank you.
And as we continue to grow rapidly, moving forward, we are positioning the Philippines as a hub for globally competitive, sustainability, and innovation-driven manufacturing and services. And we look to Europe for technology, for anything sustainable, clean, and green. And we hope that we will be able to get more investment interest in the Philippines. We at the Board of Investments will be your focal point. When you enter the Philippines, we will help you navigate the bureaucracy, although we have really already simplified many of the processes, but we will be your partner when you come in to the Philippines. So please, make it happen in the Philippines.
I have one last question. I'm very cognizant of the time, and I don't want to hold you back for lunch. My one last question to all of you, maybe we can start with Iris. In the short term, 1 to 5 years, where do you hope to see the Philippines in the areas of green transition and digital transformation? Well, maybe for you in particular, green energy and technologies.
Yes, as I've said, we have a lot of, we have vast resources, and we would want to tap that. We want to see the Philippines as the benchmark in ASEAN for renewable energy, especially for offshore wind, because we have such vast resources and potential for that. And in doing so, we would like also to have the infrastructure and the ecosystem, the supplier, the supply chain, the ecosystem to be also in the Philippines, so that really anything renewable energy, offshore wind, the ecosystem will be in the Philippines, and we are up there in the region as a model for sustainable and the green transition.
Yes, in the next 5 years, we're dreaming that one of the offshore wind projects will be up and running. And that is because of the whole of the government approach that we're doing now in partnership with the investors. Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we operate on both the demand and the supply side. On the supply side, like I mentioned earlier, explore the opportunities in the Philippines. In fact, an opportune time would be from October 25 to 27. We're going to have the Philippine Semiconductor Electronics Convention, which will be held in Manila. And please do come and visit. I know our friends in DTI and BOI would be very helpful in facilitating your visit, so you can explore. Because as I mentioned earlier, we have international partners in this compared to world standards, like the Consumer Electronics Show. This is relatively smaller, but we do have our partner associations coming from China, from Singapore, from Hong Kong, from Taiwan. They will all be coming over and exhibiting in the Philippines. So there's a German pavilion, but it's really most of the German companies in the Philippines. So I enjoin you to come over and enjoy our hospitality. On the demand side, renewable energy probably, we have about 500 megawatts of industry demand. So it's the biggest industry, one of the biggest consumer. And so right now, maybe the RE component is relatively small, but speaking from on behalf of our members, they all want to switch to renewable energy. For not just for our employees right now, but for future generations in terms of the carbon footprint, reducing emissions. So please, we can't have enough. I appeal to you, explore the Philippines, install renewable energy capacity. It's just not enough. Thank you.
For the IT BPM industry, my goals are simple. I need to help grow the industry to 2.5 million jobs for Filipinos by the end of 2028. But we hope to do this with growth in the countryside, continue to reduce carbon footprint, promote. I want our industry to be a leader in green IT and to do the things that we do with sustainability and inclusivity with an ESG-driven agenda. So that's going to be hard, but that's what we will aim to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, panelists. Please join me in thanking our esteemed panelists for today.
Thank you very much, Liana. And sorry.
If you could just remain seated, we'll have the open forum after the
Yes,
presentation
correct,
later.
correct. So please, remain on stage, colleagues. Next on our program, we have actually two company testimonials from Belgian companies that have been doing business in the field of green technologies in the Philippines. And as we all know, nothing beats the experience shared by businessmen on the ground. So let's hear from them. To start with, we have Pieter-Jan van Boegenhout from Upgrade Energy. Pieter-Jan is a director at Upgrade Energy Philippines Incorporated and responsible for development activities. He has been working for more than 15 years in the renewable energy sector, of which more than 10 years in the development, financing and EPC or engineering, procurement and construction of solar energy and battery storage projects in Southeast Asia. Pieter-Jan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I don't know if I had a few slides. I don't know if. Okay, all right, great. Yeah, thank you very much for having us here, and thank you very much for your comments, especially also on SAPI. We are here in the Philippines, and we are willing to grow and to do much more. And anytime we can talk. So we've been in the country since 2015. It's a joint venture with myself and Ruth Owen, who has been in the business since 2005. We've been doing solar projects mostly on rooftops, commercial industrial projects around the entire country, from places around Metro Manila and the area between Manila and Batangas, but also all the way to Visayas and Mindanao as well. Up to Zamboanga, we've done a few projects there as well. So our main focus really is there on CNI, so commercial industrial solar projects, mostly rooftop, more and more also going into ground-mounted projects. We see the demand is huge, and sometimes rooftops are just too small to cater for that demand. So that's so we also welcome a lot of those policies that you mentioned. GEOP is very promising. It's not always very easy in the Philippines to find and secure suitable land for renewable energy projects. So we also welcome now that there's this consultation ongoing for expanded rooftop solar program. It's a magnificent opportunity to use all those warehouse roofs for future solar projects. That's also a great development. We started slowly growing also into utility scale projects, and we recently secured a service energy contract for a project in Zambales. And we work on, of course, quality, sustainable growth, but also gender balance is really important. We have a company which I'm actually the only one in the management that's a guy. All the rest are very well established industry veterans. So just wanted to show one picture. We just recently, I think you will especially like it, we just finished this project in Batangas, 14 megawatts, and it's actually the largest solar rooftop project for own use in the country. There are larger rooftop projects, solar rooftop projects, but they are for export into the grid. This one is really for own use, and even this project only caters for few percentages of the demand of this facility, because it's a petrochemical plant. So we're looking at further expanding this into getting to not even yet 10% of their demands. The opportunities are there. And then, yeah, maybe just because we've been operating there for about 8 years, so just on the next slide, there's some things that I think many of you have already mentioned and found very interesting. So indeed, the workforce, the talent is really there. When it comes to, it's not just installation workforce, it's skilled labor, project engineers, project managers, really from unskilled to skilled to management positions, anything a very, very talented workforce. I think one of the things that you, Mylene, mentioned really is also on all the policy support. There is really a lot of policy support for renewable energy in the Philippines. But it's also one of the most liberalized electricity markets in Southeast Asia, if not the most. And this in combination, I mean, we have a wholesale electricity spot market. We have retailers providing electricity. There's competitive selection for the use. There's also a retail electricity supplier, retail competition, and so on. So it's really the most, I think, even more than Singapore, probably the most liberalized electricity market in Southeast Asia. And also on top of that, the tariffs. I mean, companies are paying quite a lot for their electricity. Now also with coal prices increasing, and I think also the gas field of Malampaya going towards more and more depletion, and the country shifting to also LNG. We're looking at, I mean, we just need to build more solar and wind. Yeah, you mentioned the foreign ownership restrictions that were lifted. That's really a very good progress. The strong policy framework, and I think also on top of that, and I can speak from experience, we were one of the first companies in the country to secure, thanks to the Development Bank of the Philippines, really non-recourse financing for relatively small-scale rooftop projects, and we've been financing a number of these projects. I cannot say a huge number, but a number of these projects really through local debt financing on a non-recourse basis, and I think it's one of the things that also make it unique. It's something that I don't think in many other countries in Southeast Asia you can finance. But most and for all, I think what's really important here is also you cannot do this alone. So you need to go there. You need to look for local partners. You need to build a relationship of trust, like you do in the business sector. And that's once you have a very good local partner, then there's only the opportunities are only there to for the. Thank you.
Let's get together. I used to run 3 solar companies, so I'm familiar with the landscape, and our electronics companies have big rooftops, so maybe I can also introduce.
So you have already the next business case here. So thanks a lot, Peter Jan, for sharing this rich experience, and I'm sure that this is of immense value to many joining us here today. Let's give him another round of applause. Now, following Peter Jan, we will now hear from Peter Dobelair. Peter holds a master's degree in electromechanical engineering from the University of Brussels and a business degree from Blerick School of Management. He has worked 35 years in the chemical industry, primarily in operational management, general management and project management, and was mostly employed on international assignments. Colleagues, please remain here.
No, I think it's a bit awkward. So
Okay.
I'll call them out
Okay.
again.
And was mostly employed on international assignments in Belgium, England, France, South Korea, United States of America, China, and the Philippines. Since 2005, Peter is working for Umicore NV for different business units, including rechargeable battery materials and cobalt specialty materials. He holds the position of General Manager at Umicore Specialty Chemicals Subic, Philippines, and since 2015, and additionally he took up the function of Environmental, Social and Governance Director within the CSM business unit. Peter, great to have you here with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and well, thanks for inviting me, and give a little testimonial of what it means, not only working in the Philippines, actually working for Umicore as a group. Umicore, a big global company, we call ourselves a circular company because we will only develop business where we know that afterwards we can recycle some of the goods, some of the waste that our own products generate with the industries of our customers. So it is important in the whole concept of Umicore, and I'll come back to that later, that we look at sustainable businesses, that we look at circular businesses. Now, one of the business units or divisions that we have within Umicore is, of course, rechargeable battery materials, one of the fastest growing business units that we have seen in decades within our company, and we already exist for 200 years. So battery materials is of course mainly due to the electrification of cars and not only cars but also stationary battery applications, etc. Umicore being one of the biggest players in the what we call cathode materials. That's a part of how you build a battery. Strangely enough, one of the metals used in these is nickel. And we were always surprised as an industry, with the Philippines being the second biggest source, or let's say potential source of nickel, that it has not developed as it should be. So one of my recommendations, I can always say, Umicore is, next to the stainless steel industry, one of the biggest takers of nickel as part of their battery materials. So certainly an area where the Philippines can develop a lot, taking a good approach that includes indeed inviting a lot of companies to not only do the mining, that's one part of it, but mainly to develop the downstream industry that is possible from nickel as an. So that is Umicore. I'm not going to go too much over the model. It's important to remember we're circular. We try to focus a lot on sustainability, and I'll come back to that later. But let's first talk about the company we have in the Philippines itself. We are located in Subic, Zambales province, sorry. And we're actually dealing with nickel chemicals. For a small part, we use that for the battery materials, but for a bigger part, it goes actually to different industries. And again, strangely enough, our raw materials do not come from the Philippines. It's a mischance, and we can certainly work on that in the coming years. And I want to stress, we have been there for more than 20 years. I noticed it was not mentioned here in the panel, but I would like to at least recommend an organization in the Philippines called PESA that helped us a lot from the very beginning in not only establishing ourselves in the Philippines, but continuously support us in expansions, in dealing with regulations, in dealing with the other numerous Philippine departments, government departments, to make things easy. And that is important, I think, for any industry that wants to come to the Philippines. PESA is a unique organization and is doing a very good job in not only bringing in foreign investments, but maintaining it and helping them to grow in the Philippines. So that's one part. But the other part is back to resources in the Philippines, mainly human resources. I've worked there for 7 years myself, but we have been there for 20 years. I can say work ethic, knowledge. I mean, it's great to work in the Philippines with these people. They're really eager to work, eager to learn. I have to say the level of education is good. Certainly, if I think from it from a Western point of view, even all our operators, no problem in communicating in English. It's great to be there. It's easy to be there. So I can only recommend other industries to come there too. So, but one part I want to stress is what we call zero. And when we talk zero, it's not only zero emissions. If you go to the next slide, it's actually zero everything. The next slide is right there. So it's not only about zero, for instance, incidents at work. We want to have zero harm to our employees. We also want to have diversity. So we do have we have zero tolerance into diversity and into preferred habits like religion or race or whatever it is. So that's part of zero two. We protect our employees, but the two items I want to bring that have to do with also the energy transition, and I can talk for hours on this, is the sustainable sourcing champion. So say that we talked about zero emissions, zero CO2 emissions mainly. Umicore has a goal to have zero emissions by 2035. And that's quite a stretch, I have to say. The stretch is not only because we are operating globally, and some countries are just starting the path to renewable energy. For instance, in the Philippines today, it's not there yet, but we see this big emphasis on renewable energy and a big push to get there with the help of foreign countries. But it's not only a nice thing to have, it's a necessity. We as a company will say, if we cannot be zero by 2035, we will no longer operate in these areas that cannot provide that possibility. And I'm not talking about existing companies. Even if we would invest in new companies, the one requirement that we will have from now on is it has to be able to supply complete 100% renewable energy. Otherwise, we won't even invest in the country. That's how important it is. And you can say, well, give us time, etc. I don't believe in our company. My company does not believe we have that time. Climate change is a given, and we work hard in doing our part to reduce that. So it's an important message I want to give, and I'm sure that other companies that want to come to the Philippines have that same message. You have to be able to provide, or at least give a path forward to companies to invest in the Philippines, that they have the possibility of renewable energy, possibly 100% renewable energy. The Philippines, as a country, has the sources of renewable energy. It just needs to work hard on it. So, and we believe, we've been there 20 years. We hope to be there for another 20, 30, 50 years, not only with the plant in Subic, but with more plants to come. So thank you for your attention. That's it.
Thank you very much, Peter. Amazing contribution. Very important points shared by you, especially also when it comes to PESA. Colleagues, again, let's give Peter a big hand. And we have now about 15 minutes for an open forum with questions that can be addressed here from the participants to both Peter and Peter Jan, as well as to our four panelists. So maybe I can ask in this regard our four panelists to come back to the stage, including my colleague Liana, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and for bearing with us as we navigated the logistics. I'll try and keep it as quick as possible, 10 minutes, if that's okay. Anybody has any burning questions from the audience, please? Yes.
Good morning. My name is Walter Buidens from Turbulent Micro Hydropower. My question is, how easy or difficult is it to set up a joint venture within the Philippines?
It would be relatively easy to set up a joint venture once you have identified a suitable partner for you. The BOI can actually help you out with the registration with our Securities and Exchange Commission, and moving forward, if you would need other permits and licenses and incentives, for example, then we will be able to help you navigate the system.
Any more burning questions? Yes.
My name is Wim Boenstra from the Netherlands. I'm representing together with my wife as CEO Joikaya BV. That's we are coming from the food industry, but like we are in business, we like to know as well how is the earning model, because you invest in the energy, but how you are earning, that you have the revenue from the investment that you are doing. Because you can invest a lot of money in the industry for the energy, but how you get it back, because that's important. Because it has to come from two sides, so that's important.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for the question. Actually, in the energy sector, it's already competitive and private sector driven. So it depends on the business model that you're taking. What we're introducing are the markets for you to be engaged with. For example, if you're putting up a solar panel for utility use, utility scale, or for direct consumer contract. So it depends on what is profitable or what is workable or feasible for your company.
And perhaps your position can also be supported if you are entitled to some incentives that can make your financial position better. If you are qualified for investments. For renewable energy, as I've said earlier, there are 2 laws from which you can draw the incentives. So you just need to meet the qualifications, but in general, the incentives that we provide are really quite generous.
Any more from the audience?
Thank you. Carsten Hess with Avisa Partners. We're looking at European public affairs. And I have one question. The EU has recently come up with a lot of regulation with unilateral measures, like Foreign Subsidy Act, which will come into force next month, and also CBAM and Deforestation Act. And my question is, because you spoke about particular tax breaks for investors, do you feel more concern from European investors in your countries? Is that becoming an issue for you? So it would be quite interested if you have a kind of, I mean, you're at the core of these investments, so whether you hear concerns from European investors about these upcoming European regulations.
I think those were taken up in some meetings with the secretary, but from our side, from the Board of Investments, we have not yet really received any concerns on that. And while incentives would just be, we look at it just as icing on the cake, what would really be attractive for investors would really be the institutional policy reforms that we have and the support of the other non-fiscal support of government. And of course, what we're doing is really making the business environment conducive to foreign direct investments. So whether or not the upcoming regulations of in other countries would somehow dampen the effect of incentives, I think the more reasonable take of investors would really be something on the economic fundamentals rather than on the other perks that the government can provide.
Anybody would like to add to it? If not, we have one more question from Noel.
Thank you. Noel Clehan from the EU-ASEAN Business Council. In the past, the Philippines was very much known for a lot of red tape and bureaucracy, but more recently, under President Marcos, there have been a lot of initiatives to make it a more enabling regulatory environment. Could you give us a bit of a sense of what those initiatives are and what the long-term ambition is in that regard? Thank you.
So we have the Ease of Doing Business Act, And we have established what the so-called anti-red tape authority, where government agencies are actually required or have a prescriptive period within which to act. Otherwise, those applications will be deemed as approved. So for simple, it would be 3 days. If it's somewhat complex, it's 7 days. And for the more really complicated kinds of projects, that would be 20 days. And then just recently, President Marcos has also issued Executive Order 18, establishing green lanes for strategic investments. So there is a list of activities for which projects that would fall under that can invoke on EO-18, that's the Green Lane Executive Order, where government agencies are mandated to act on the applications for permits and licenses simultaneously instead of sequential, because it somehow lengthens the process when one government agency would depend on another government agency to issue first something. So under that EO-18, everything must be done simultaneously, and that will dramatically cut down on the time for processing. And of course, for renewable energy, Asik Mylene for EVOS.
Thank you. For the energy sector, we have the Energy Virtual One-Stop Shop, wherein all the processes and requirements are stipulated in an electronic platform, wherein the developer or the applicant will see the status of the application, and if an agency failed to act on the application, it will be deemed approved. So there is really a strict requirement for each agencies involved in the energy sector to act on a timely manner. And then another one is in the issuance of Executive Order 21, specific for the offshore wind development. No? So in the guidelines, it takes on the whole of the government approach, in which the agencies are required to define the requirement in each of the stage of developing. Like for example, if there's only pre-development measurement of the resources, maybe a non-coverage certificate may be only required. So we have issued the implementing guidelines for those, and we will start soon the integration in the EVOS of these permits and licensing requirement. So everything is under a transparent mode, no, and open to the investors and applicants. Thank you.
Just to add, at the firm level, at the Board of Investments, we actually facilitate and help investors with anything that they are doing for licensing and permits. We have a network of government agencies that we work with, so we are able to facilitate permits and licenses at the firm level of the investors. So we have an investor assistance center at the Board of Investments.
I just wanted to add a few comments. Relative to the previous administration, I can say from my own experience that this administration has made ease of doing business very important, and I think depending on what business you're in or industry you're entering into, you have a choice of investment promotion agency. Peter mentioned the Philippine Economic Zone Authority. Clearly, they are very relevant, and they offer the advantage of a one-stop shop. So it depends on really the nature of your business. But just to add another comment on this new administration, just to indicate how serious they are about being open for business, they have made it very clear that they welcome the input of the private sector. The President has formed a private sector advisory committee that is composed of the top leaders of privately held companies, and they are a very good sounding board and recommendation source for new policies and new policies to be implemented. So I can say that this government is very much open for business.
Thank you very much, panelists. I think this one more question? Yeah?
Karel Hermans from Jan de Nul. I'm glad to hear that there is the ambition to have, within 5 years, the first offshore wind farm operational. This is very fast, to our experience, at least in Europe. Are there already things being done today, like grid upgrades, which will be needed, obviously, and maybe soil investigation, wind investigation on the spot?
Yeah, okay, thank you, sir. Given the huge response of the private sector, particularly the foreign investors on the offshore wind development, so we have these several initiatives or work stream simultaneously being undertaken, one of which is in the area of transmission or grid interconnection. So the Department of Energy is currently developing a strategic and green transmission development plan that may pave the way for the construction of the lines through official development assistance or any alternative mode, no? Because not only in the Philippines but elsewhere, grid interconnection is a major problem. So given our vast resources and our targets of achieving 35% RE share, we need to expedite, the entry of these projects in a given time, no? So that we cannot wait if the line is not ready. We have to make it happen. Thank you.
Okay, well, if you have any other questions, we will be having the standing lunch later, so please feel free to approach any of our panelists today. I think that concludes our Q&A session. I'll leave it back to, maybe thank you once again to our panelists. And I would like to invite you to exit the stage from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liana, and our panelists for this Q&A session. And as Liana has mentioned, if there are more questions and you want to deep dive, or you have follow-up questions, maybe we can do this during our standing lunch out there. Last but definitely not the least on our agenda for today's event is Undersecretary Maria Blanca Kim Bernardo Lokin, Undersecretary for Communications of the Department of Trade and Industry, who will share her closing remarks with us. Yusek Lokin is in charge of supervising the Public Relations Unit, as well as overseeing and consolidating the department's communications group, developing standards, policies and guidelines for a unified communications strategy. She is also tasked with establishing and maintaining strong relationships and partnerships with key stakeholders across traditional and online media outlets. Undersecretary Lokin is a former congresswoman for the party list group CIBAC, Citizens Battle Against Corruption. He was also a veteran business journalist both in broadcast and print, and has had extensive experience covering various beats as a reporter and anchor for the television network ABS-CBN and ANC, as well as the government-owned PTV4. He was also a writer for the Philippine Star, the business columnist for the Manila Times newspaper, as well as managing editor for the Business Plus Class magazine. Undersecretary Lokin holds a bachelor's degree in literature from the University of Santo Tomas, and as a legislator she has co-authored several landmark measures on women and children, including the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children Act of 2003 and the Trafficking Persons Act of 2003. She is also an appointive director of the Philippine International Trading Corporation, or PITC, October 21, 2022. With her assumption as Undersecretary, she is now designated as Undersecretary in charge of PITC. Madam Undersecretary, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Florian, and thank you very much to our distinguished guests. I know that at this point, I am the only one standing in the way of you and your lunch, so I will make this really brief. On behalf of the Department of Trade and Industry, I stand before you today filled with much gratitude and enthusiasm as we bring the Philippine Business Forum on Green Energy and Digital Technologies to a close. It has been an honor to witness and the exchange of ideas, the sharing of experiences, and the forging of partnerships that have taken place throughout this event. I would also like to express my deepest appreciation to our partners, the Board of Investments, the EU-ASEAN Business Council for organizing this remarkable forum. We are also extending our gratitude to the Ministry of Energy of the Federal Government of Belgium, the Philippine Department of Energy, the Semiconductor and Electronics Industries of the Philippines, or SEPI, the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines, or IBPAP, and the European Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines, or ECCP, for your continued support as we made this forum possible. Of course, this event would also not have been a success without the active participation of our business communities here in the wonderful city of Brussels. And as we gathered here today to explore the immense potential that lies within the intersection of green energy and digital technologies, we have heard from all our esteemed speakers who have enlightened us about the favorable investment climate in the Philippines, the emerging market trends, and our unwavering commitment to energy transition and our digital transformation. The discussions and presentations, I hope, have shed light, and we have also shared our remarkable success stories, innovative solutions, and ambitious growth plans of the leading Philippine companies in the green and digital technology sectors. And by 2030, as mentioned earlier, the Philippines aims to derive 35% of its power from the renewable energy, a goal that will increase by 2040. The challenges ahead are great, but we embrace them with unwavering determination. Today, we extend our hands in partnership and collaboration to Belgium, Europe, and the wider European community. Your innovation and expertise in green and digital technologies will serve as invaluable pathways for the Philippines to achieve our climate and sustainable development ambitions. Together, we can turn our shared visions into reality. And as we conclude this forum, I urge all of you to carry the momentum forward. Let us seize the opportunities that lie before us and translate them into tangible actions. Let us continue to foster meaningful dialogue, exchange knowledge, and of course, build lasting partnerships. And by doing so, we will create a future where economic growth goes hand in hand with environmental sustainability and where digital advancements bring prosperity to all. Many connections have been made here today, and I hope that they serve as the foundation for a bright and prosperous tomorrow. On behalf of the Department of Trade and Industry, on behalf of the PTIC in Brussels, and on behalf of our partners, the ECCP, EU-ASEAN, our ambassador, Jet Leda, here in the Philippines, we hope we can make it happen in the Philippines. Let's make it happen. Green energy, digital technologies, industries to benefit both Philippines and Europe. Philippines is open for business. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Under Secretary, for sharing your closing remarks with us. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, this concludes the official part of our Philippine Business Forum on Green Energy and Digital Technologies. We say goodbye and thank you to our online participants at this point. And for the attendees here in the room, allow me to invite you on behalf of the organizers to a networking gathering to engage further with each other over a standing lunch. Before we wrap up, allow me to ask all the speakers and panelists to come back to the stage for a group photo, please. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po.